Good morning, Pickswise Nation. It's Alex Glaze, joined by Jared Smith. This is Let's Bet It. Championship Saturday. A lot can go down today. The college football playoff picture could be completely changed by tonight. I mean, a lot can go on between now and midnight tonight, Jared. It's just crazy how much things can actually change over the next couple hours.
Yeah, chaos certainly can happen today in Atlanta. It can happen in the Big 12 championship game as well. I think Cincinnati, based on the point spread, is the safest of all of the teams that are kind of in the mix. And I'll be honest, I think we're going to see a very interesting – I think the game of the day obviously is Alabama-Georgia. We're both kind of differing opinions on that game. We'll get to that game a little bit later. But I think if you asked me if there is a chaos theory that could take place today – the committee does not want to see Baylor win. They do not want to see Alabama win. They do not want to see Houston win. That would be the three results that would just explode the entire process and send the whole committee into a tizzy. But that's why they roll the ball out and play the game, right?
That's why you play the game. That's right. That's right. We're going to get into all of that and so much more. But before we do, remember to subscribe to Pickswise's YouTube channel and let us know in the comments what you're thinking about our picks, what picks you're making for today. We're going to be checking the comment section throughout today's show. And make sure you download the Pickswise app that's available on the App Store and in Google Play. Today, we're going to be going through 5 of the biggest conference championships game. Of course, we're going to finish things off with the SEC championship game, the biggest game, I think, of the day. There's no arguments there. And we're going to be joined by mid-major Matt later on in the show to talk about a few plays that he has in today's slate. And like I said, we're going to be checking the chat for your questions throughout the show, and we're going to finish things off with our play of the day. So, Jared, without further ado, let's get right to it, and let's bet it. Before we get into any of the games, the playoff picture, to me right now, I think it's pretty clear. I think Georgia's in, regardless of what happens today. I don't see Michigan losing today. I just don't see that.
Also agree.
So, but they need to win. So Michigan's not safe. I think Georgia's the only team that's absolutely safe today. The other 3 spots are up for grabs, right? I think that's fair to say. The way I see it shaking out, Georgia, Michigan. I think we could potentially see movement at the 3rd spot because Bama, if they lose today, we'll get into that. They're going to drop out, and then the 3-4 spots are really interesting. Because depending on what happens in that SEC championship, let's say Bama wins, right?
Yeah.
Does the committee move them up to 2, so we don't get?
Good question.
Or do you move? Do you keep Georgia and Bama staggered? How do you play that out? And then also Oklahoma State, if they win, let's say there's no chaos except for Oklahoma State winning, do they bump Cincy just with that win? How do you see this playing out?
If Georgia beats Bama and they beat them by the spread, like Georgia wins by a touchdown or more, I think Oklahoma State.
Out.
Yeah, I think Bama's out, and I think Oklahoma State gets in. If Bama wins, if I was the committee, granted I'm not, but if I was the committee and the number 1 team in the country lost to the number 3 team in the country, I would switch those positions. And I would put Bama 1, I would keep Michigan at 2, and I would knock Georgia down to 3. And then Cincy would be in with a win, and Oklahoma State would be the odd team out. In my eyes, the only way that we have true chaos today is if Michigan loses outright. Then the committee is going to be asked with 2 questions. 1, do you put Ohio State in there? Probably not.
Notre Dame. Notre Dame's the team.
Notre Dame would be the other team. And I think if Michigan loses, Oklahoma State definitely would be in. So let's say Michigan and Alabama both lose today, which would be a chaos theory. Then 2 spots could be open for a team like Oklahoma State and Notre Dame to insert themselves into the picture. I don't think that's going to happen. If I had to guess how it's going to play out today, Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, Cincinnati. In my eyes, those are the best 4 teams in the country, and I think that is how – and I don't care how they're ranked, how they're structured, how they're seeded. That doesn't matter to me. But if you were going to ask me the best 4 teams in the country – I would probably put Oklahoma State on the outside and Notre Dame on the outside. And I think Cincinnati deserves to be in because their body of work's been great. I think Alabama's played one of the toughest schedules in the country, and we're going to see how good they really are later tonight. Michigan beat Ohio State. If they win today, they're a lock. And Georgia, obviously, no matter what happens today, they have proven to be one of the top 4 teams in the country. So in my eyes, the committee got it right this week. We just have to see how the jigsaw puzzles fit into place today.
I'm so mad at myself because I'm sitting here and I wanted to do a bit to start the show. I wanted to talk in a fake Southern accent like Brian Kelly, but I forgot to do it. So now it's not really.
I do declare.
I was gonna say
I do declare the top 4 teams in the CFP.
I was gonna say program instead of program, but
program. I like that.
Yeah, but the big question
Brian.
I have too, as we're talking about Notre Dame and their chances too. How much stock do you think the committee's putting into Brian Kelly not being there anymore and Marcus Freeman taking over? Because they've named a head coach. He's a guy that's been there, so there's not much that's rocked the boat there at Notre Dame, right? Like I think that kind of stabilizes things for them from a potential playoff picture perspective.
I think it makes Notre Dame even a way more interesting team. Clearly, the players were very happy and excited about Marcus Freeman being the defensive coordinator. I don't have any specific opinions on whether or not they become a more attractive team for the committee because they're not playing any. So it'd be one thing if they played a game today and they looked unbelievable with Marcus Freeman and they were just flying around the field and they blew out whoever they were facing. Then yes, I would make them a more attractive option because clearly, I don't want to say Brian Kelly was holding them back, but the coaching change obviously sparked something. And I do think it did because you saw the reaction, from South Bend. So I'm kind of neutral on Notre Dame. I think they're too far out of the mix. I don't think there's going to be that much chaos today. I think the most amount of chaos we will see today is Alabama getting blown out, and that will open the door for Oklahoma State if they can win. If Alabama gets blown out and Oklahoma State loses, then we can start to talk about Notre Dame a little bit more seriously. But I would say the Irish are kind of a firm out right now. But they're going to be in a New Year's Six game, and we're going to get to see exactly what that dynamic is like with their new head coach. So we're going to get an answer to that question in a few weeks.
Absolutely. Before we get into the games, one more thing too. I think that the Heisman Trophy also will be decided today. Full disclosure, Heisman voter here, so not going to say what anything that's not blatantly obvious here. But if Bryce Young can beat Georgia, I think it's
done.
He won the Heisman, right?
Absolutely.
Like that's it. That's it. Curtains. But it's going to be interesting to see that game too because we'll get into that game later. But I think that that's fair to say that the Heisman Trophy will be won or lost by Bryce Young today, right?
Yeah, and it's a shame that we don't get to see any of the other big time players. Actually, no, we're going to see Hutchinson today. I'll be honest, if Aiden Hutchinson has like 10 sacks today,
game record.
That's an interesting one too. But I would have loved to see CJ Stroud get a game. I'll be honest, I wish the Big Ten got away from these stupid divisions and we ran back the Big Ten, Michigan, Ohio State again today. Like, to me, that would have been the best way to do it. But they've got these, these dopey divisions where they're separating all these teams. And, we are not getting the two best teams in the Big Ten playing today. I'll just say it frankly. That's what we're not getting that today.
All right. That's fair enough. All right. Let's get into some games. And let's start in the ACC with Wake Forest and Pitt. Pitt laying 3.5 points, that total at 71.
Woo!
The ACC. It's a big total. Big number. What side are you taking? Do you have a lean for this game? What are you thinking when you look at the ACC championship?
Yeah, I don't mind your play on Pitt. I think Wake is a little bit, I don't want to call him Fugazi, but I feel like at some point this year, Wake has played games where they've relied a lot on their very gimmicky offense, which if you haven't watched it, it's like a read option, but it's like a pause read option. Like you'll see Hartman like drag the running back out and they'll wait till the absolute last minute, then pull, and then they've got, tight ends or wide receivers running vertical down the field, and they get these big pockets of space behind the linebackers. That's what they're going to try to do today. And Pitt's been susceptible to that. We saw that game a few weeks ago against Miami where you saw athletes running in space for the Hurricanes, and Pitt really struggled to defend that. So the over here is, it's a high total, but I wouldn't bet this game to the under because I think Wake plays at a very high tempo. And on the other side, I really like the movement that we've seen towards Pitt through a key number of 3. Kenny Pickett is the real deal. and he has played at a very high level this season. So if I had to play this game, I would say Pitt in the over would be my leans. I do not have a bet on this game, but I like what I see from Pitt this year. I like what I saw from Kenny Pickett. The question is, how can they defend this very gimmicky read option, pass option offense from Wake? That's going to be the question that'll decide this one for me.
Right. I wrote this up earlier in the week for Pickswise.com, and that was Pitt -3 at the time, and I sided with Pitt. I don't have a play for this game. I'm not going to play this game today, but I would definitely lean towards Pitt. I mean, obviously Sam Hartman and Kenny Pickett are the two attractors for this game, right? You're watching to see fireworks and offense, but I think the difference in this game is going to be that Pitt defensive front. Averaging 3.9 sacks per game, leading college football, ranked top 10 in sack percentage. So they're going to be getting after Sam Hartman. And Wake just doesn't have a defense at all. So I think Kenny Pickett's going to be able to sling that thing around. Pitt's going to be getting to him. And, you're asking how do they defend that gimmicky offense? I mean, Brett Venables in Clemson kind of wrote the book for that a couple weeks ago here. Hartman threw for 312 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but he also rushed it 14 times. Guess how many yards? Negative 37. Negative 37.
They count the sacks as rushing yards in college football, which skews it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, 14 rushes for negative 37 yards, just absolutely stuffed. So I think Pitt probably watched a lot of that Clemson game this week to kind of figure out how to
they ran for over 300 yards in that. I'm looking at the box score now. So they held Wake to 10 points in the first half, which probably I would bet that's their lowest first half total in any game this year. And they ran, Clemson did, for over 333 yards, 333. Nice round number there, right? 333.
Absolutely.
But that, can Pitt run the ball is the question, because they are more of a passing team. So do you want to go blow for blow in the air with Hartman? Or can you do can you mimic that Clemson game plan? Can you slam it right down Wake's throat? I would bet Pittsburgh's got some pretty decent athletes in the trenches. Like, if I had to bet who has the bigger, beef in the trenches, I think Pitt's probably got, Wake is a pretty small team, especially up front defensively. So I would say if Pitt can run the ball and if they can get that play action going, I mean, I think 3.5 in a high total game like this, I don't mind laying the extra hook on the 3. Because it's like the points don't really matter as much. There's going to be 1 million points in this game. So I'd be okay still laying 3 and a hook with Pitt.
All right. Well, before we get into our next games, let's bring in mid-major Matt. We are going to ask him a couple questions about the MAC championship game. We're going to ask him about the Sun Belt. But before we get into that, first of all, mid-major Matt, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. I need to get one of those headsets. That sounds so clear. That sounds great. Let's get right to it. Matt, you got a pick for this Houston-Cincy game. And, everyone seems to – Jared and I are both on Cincy, full disclosure.
Yeah, why are we wrong here, Matt? Why are we wrong?
Yeah, tell us what we're not seeing.
I don't necessarily think you're wrong. I just think it's funny. A lot of the arguments people are making for Cincinnati, you can make the same arguments for Houston, because I think a lot of people are saying, well, look, Houston had a really easy schedule. But outside of, the Notre Dame game for Cincinnati, who have they played? I mean, Indiana's not very good this year. Notre Dame arguably offensively was not very good. Houston's offense right now is better than Notre Dame's offense was then. So I feel like this is arguably the best challenge that Cincinnati has. And not only does Cincinnati have to win today, I feel like they have to win by margin. Like, they have to go and win this game by 14, 20 points, I think, because a small win and Oklahoma State's really impressive and other things happen, Oklahoma State leaps them. And so I think there's some extra pressure, and I think this is a Houston team that's got a really good offense. Remember, Dana Holgorsen pointed to last year. He had guys redshirt a couple of years ago. He was ready to set up his team, and then COVID happens, De'Ara King leaves. And then he got Clayton Tune, all this work. And so last year was kind of the minor league season for this team to build up to this year. I know Luke Fickell staying is huge for Cincinnati. That's big, and that's going to give them some extra motivation here. But 10.5 just seems way too much for a competent Houston team. And full disclosure, I've got an 18-1 ticket on Houston to win the AAC from the preseason. I'm not hedging it. I think there's a chance they win outright today.
Of course you're not hedging it. Matt, Houston, so I've worked with Matt for a while. 2 things about him. One, as sharp as a college basketball handicapper you'll find, and he never hedges anything. So that being said, I'm going to throw 2 little wrenches or flies in the ointment here, and you tell me how you react to them. One, we saw last night how impactful home field advantage was for UTSA. Cincinnati has home field advantage today. We already heard Dana Holgorsen kind of complain about it this week, saying it was unfair that Cincinnati gets that, which is not a great mentality, I think, for Houston coming in. But also Luke Fickell staying with the Bearcats, not going to Notre Dame. That, to me, gets a little bit of added edge, added motivation to this Bearcats team. They are absolutely fired up because they're not losing their head coach. Do any of those factors, home field and the coaching, I would call it edge for Luke Fickell, matter at all to you in this game?
Well, the home field for UTSA was huge because it's a dome, and that was big. And plus that steam, let's not get into that. That steam was hilarious that they made that 3.5. I mean, I was so happy to get 3.5 last night. But yeah, of course, home field matters. But I mean, look, Houston's won a bunch of road games this year. It's not like they haven't won on the road. And granted, look, they weren't as intimidating a crowd as it is today. And look, I could be completely wrong, but I've watched this Houston team a lot. They clinched their spot in this game about a month ago, and they didn't lose stride. You look at a team like Louisiana, who clinched their spot in the Sun Belt Championship like a month ago. They kind of fell off a little bit towards the end because they didn't really care. Houston hasn't been that way. Their offense is really good. Their defense is really good. I think 10.5 is too much, and that half point could also come into play here as well.
Absolutely.
I want to talk about that Baylor-Oklahoma State game next. That is another big one because I think that, like you mentioned, Cincinnati needs to win by margin because if it's a close game, I could see Oklahoma State jumping them regardless what happens in that game here. But your pick for this game is interesting. It is the first quarter under. And anyone who watches this show consistently knows that I love a good under. But a first quarter under might be too sweaty for even me. 9.5 points. And you're all over that. Why?
Well, I mean, look, I think there's going to be, for both Michigan and Oklahoma State, some hangovers. They arguably won the biggest game of their season already. And look, I understand this is the conference championship, but Michigan beating Ohio State and Oklahoma State beating Oklahoma, I mean, it means more to them probably than almost the conference championship does. So I expect a little bit of a hangover here. And if you look at Baylor, we're either going to get a really hobbled Bohannon or we're going to get the other kid who's going up against one of the best defenses in the country. And if you look, both of these teams are top 35 in first quarter defense. Oklahoma State's allowed 3.9 points per first quarter so far this season. Baylor's allowed 4.4. And only 1 point average the last 3 games. And neither team's exactly that quick. Pace could be, a bit slow here. And these two teams already played. It was a 7-0 game at the end of the first quarter. And that was with a healthy Bohannon in there for Baylor. I just don't expect good offense from Baylor. And I think Oklahoma State comes out a little bit more hungover on offense after the huge win. So I'm expecting a little bit of a slow start. Of course, I would have liked to have gotten 10. But 9.5, I feel like you're not going to get a touchdown here from either of these two teams. And even if you do, you're only going to see like 3 or 4 possessions. I think defense wins out early in this game.
Massive drop in the total.
You're pacing around your living room those first 2 drives, arms folded, just can't even look at the TV. You're just listening to it. Before we get you out of here, though, I want to ask about the MAC championship and the Sun Belt. I know you don't really have plays, but just kind of what are you thinking when you look at that matchup? Let's start with the MAC and Kent State and Northern. I mean, I think ton of offense, and I mean, Kent State's going to be coming out in the powder blues, right? I mean, you can't lose in the powder blues, right?
So what I did with Kent State is I did a money line parlay with them and San Diego State. I don't want to screw around with Northern Illinois because they've played 8 games of single digits, and they just have this weird voodoo surrounding them. If you look, their 4th down offense this year is the best in the country, and yet their offense isn't really that great. So there's a lot of this weird vibe surrounding this Northern Illinois team. Now, look, I also have a Kent State future. I think it was 11-1 preseason. I think Kent State's the better team. They have the unit I trust the most in the offense. But I don't want to mess around with this spread, so I paired their money line off with San Diego State, another team I think is going to win today. I think Kent State's got that offense, and their defense is just good enough to maybe make one stop. The over seems too easy in this game. It's already going up today. I'm not going to touch it. I should have played the over last night. It seemed too easy, and I didn't do it. There's going to be plenty of points in this one, but I trust Kent State to win, just maybe not cover. So that's why we went a little money line parlay there.
I like it.
All right, let's finish things off with the Sun Belt. What you got? App State, they're going to get it done today or what?
So here's the weird thing. The first game between these two, App State got crushed, but turnovers were the issue. They had 3 turnovers. Chase Bryce looked awful, so I expect a better effort from App State. But here's the thing. I hate trying to figure out coaching situations. We know Napier's coming back with Louisiana Lafayette. That's a huge boost for this team. But like he in his off time, he's making calls for Florida. He's recruiting for Florida.
Half in, half out, right?
Exactly. He's half in and half out. And I've seen situations where the half in part wins, and I've seen situations where the half out part wins.
Last night, Cristobal.
Exactly. It's a really hard situation to try and figure out here. I think App State's the better team, but if the half-in part of Louisiana wins out, then they're going to win this game going away because they're really excited Napier's still there. So it's a really tough handicap, and I didn't really play anything in this game because I didn't want to try and figure it out. Maybe a live bet here. If the half-in part looks good early, you bet on Louisiana. If the half-out part looks good early, then you bet on App State.
One last question. College hoops, Gonzaga tonight. You know what we're doing, right? Against Alabama.
First half over. It's 4-4 so far this season. I did play it last game against Tarleton State, which was a mistake because Tarleton State didn't really care about shooting. They dribbled the ball for 30 seconds and then missed a shot. Alabama doesn't want to do that. They want to run. Gonzaga wants to run. It should be a fun one tonight in Seattle.
Yeah, great stuff, Matt.
Matt, appreciate your time as always. We'll get you back on here.
Thanks so much.
Beautiful.
All right, Jared. Now let's get into the other games of the afternoon.
Those other games that just are
these other games. Yeah. Let's talk Kent State Northern. All right, let's get into the other games. Let's start with the Big Ten, and we'll finish things off with the SEC after that. But Big Ten, Iowa and Michigan. Michigan laying 11 points. Is it too many points? After a big emotional win over your bitter rival who you haven't beat in almost a decade in the snow. The field was stormed. Mr. Brightside's playing. Aiden Hutchinson hugging his mother. Is this too many points for a team that could potentially have a huge hangover and be on the brink of the college football playoff? 11 points against a lowly Iowa team, a pathetic Iowa team, if I'm being completely honest. Is it too many points in this spot?
I want to say yes, because the total is only 43. So the spread is over a quarter of what the total is, which always points me to a dog, especially in a letdown spot. It's really hard. And I do think that the emotions of these games, you saw it with Oregon and Utah last night. You saw Oregon come out flat. You saw Utah come out not flat. And before Oregon could even blink, it was 14-0. And the game was pretty much over. If that happens today, and Iowa, who has relied on, let's call it luck with turnovers that can be very fluky, that is a fluky statistic to rely on week after week. And if Michigan doesn't turn the ball over in the first quarter and they drive down the field early and they stick one in the end zone, and then Iowa's decrepit, crappy offense goes 3 and out, and Michigan gets right back and goes right down the field and sticks another one in the end zone, like, the emotions of these games can get out of hand early. That being said, laying this many points in a conference championship game is a very dangerous thing because Iowa is well coached and they will not quit. Whereas Oregon, in my eyes, is not that well coached, and they did quit last night. So, and to be fair, Oregon was a shorter spread too. So you would expect Oregon to come back. You wouldn't expect Iowa to come back if they fall down 21 points early. If I do not have a bet on this game, if I had to bet it, I would play Michigan. Circa's up to 12. So Circa feels very strongly. Circa moved to 12 this morning. I see 10.5 at DraftKings. So there's a little bit of discrepancy in the market. Not a lot, but a little bit of discrepancy. I was wrong when I said Cincinnati was the biggest favorite of the day at 10.5. I thought Cincinnati was going to kind of be tied with Michigan, but it looks like Michigan's the bigger favorite today. So if Michigan does not play well today, that would be a more surprising result than Cincinnati, because right now they are favored.
It'd be the most Harbaugh. It'd be the most Harbaugh thing of all time to lose this game.
100%.
Like that would be like the perfect Jim Harbaugh game here. But we got Josh in the chat. Championship game was last weekend, kind of going along with what you said about Ohio
Totally
State.
Agree,
Michigan,
Josh.
agreeing
Totally
with you
agree.
there. We got Doug saying U of M covers and take the over. Take the over.
I don't mind that, because think about it. If Michigan's going to blow
low
someone out,
total.
It is a really low total. And if Michigan's going to put up a bunch of points because they're going to cover the spread, the over is going to be in play. Think about it. If Michigan scores, if it's 34-10, the over hits. And that's not like a crazy score. Like, in my eyes, it's not. And that's a blowout. If it's 27-10, you're in, like, third quarter, like, you're in it. And 27 points isn't a lot for Michigan that's averaging over that this year. So I don't mind the over.
I actually think they're correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have it in front of me. I think they're point total, their team total for the game is 26.5. I want to say.
Yeah, that makes sense.
27.5.
Vegas has this game probably 27-17. That's kind of where, 28-17, 27-16, because the total's been hovering between
27.5 is their team total.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So actually, in my eyes, if you don't like laying it with Michigan because you think the back door might be open for one of those late fluky touchdowns, if Michigan gets to 28 points, there's a chance, to me, that's like the dynamic there. So yeah, if you like the over and you like Michigan, you can kind of split the baby and just play the Michigan team total. And odds are, if Michigan gets to 28 points, they probably cover. All
right, well, neither of us are playing this game, so let's just move right on to the big boy. Let's move on to the big boy, because this is my only play of the day today. Georgia, Bama. I'm going to give you my pick in a minute with my play of the day, obviously. But Georgia, Bama, Georgia laying 6.5 points total. Is it still 49.5? Is it 40?
Right around there.
Yeah, 49.5.
Yeah.
Huge game. Alabama needs to win. I think they need to win to make the college football playoff. Georgia, I think Kirby Smart needs to win to get the Alabama monkey off his back and to officially announce it's a new era in the SEC. And I think that could be what we're about to see today. But this is going to be a crazy game. When I look at this game from my side, I look at an Alabama team that has been inconsistent all season. That's one thing. But then I look last week in the Iron Bowl at that offensive line, because that's the position group that I think is going to be the difference in this game. 7 sacks. That's what Auburn got last week. 7 sacks. And now you're going up against the best defensive front in college football. I think it's going to be a long day for Bryce Young. I understand that the receivers, this is the best offensive skill group that Georgia's faced this year. But I don't think that matters, and that's going to be neutralized by the lack of an offensive line that Bryce Young and the lack of protection that Bryce Young is going to have. I think that's going to be a big deal in this game. And the other thing, too, it's going to be interesting to see how Georgia comes out in this game, because I can see Georgia coming out and going for the jugular right away. But what Kirby Smart has done in this spot before is come out and play conservative.
Yeah.
And kind of just let the moment kind of get to him. I hope that's not what happens, because if that happens, Bama's going to roll. I think they got to come out swinging. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts, because I think that the offensive line for Bama is going to be the difference in this game. What say you?
Yeah, so before I will give you all my thoughts on that, but we had a good question on the chat about from Josh about the money breakdown for this game.
Okay.
And I want to get to that first before I give my cap. So the money breakdown in this game is very one-sided towards Georgia.
I hate that.
Yeah,
But you know what? Sometimes the public wins. Sometimes the public wins.
100%. And let me just be clear. I never base my pick squarely on what side the public is on. Does it help and assist to know that information? It's a tool in your toolbox. It is not an end-all be-all, because Alex is right. The public wins all the time. You like to use that information as knowledge, but you should not solely base your pick on what side the public's on. That being said, the public is on Georgia here. I'm seeing at MGM this morning about 63% of the bets, almost 90% of the handle on Georgia. We haven't seen a ton of movement this week. 2 weeks ago, when this look-ahead line came out, at Circa, it was Georgia -3. In the last 2 weeks, it has moved significantly towards Georgia, now seeing 6.5. From what I heard from my guy out in Vegas, plus 220 with Alabama was the dividing line on the money line. I saw it hit plus 220 at FanDuel last night. I bet it at plus 220 last night on FanDuel. I woke up this morning, it was plus 205. So plus 220 on the money line is that line of demarcation where the sharps are going to step in on Alabama and then drive that money line back down. So if you see plus 220 on any sports book today for Alabama, that is the best price you are probably going to get on Alabama money line, plus 220. I'm very happy that I got it last night. In terms of the handicap of this game, I agree with everything that Alex is saying. Georgia is better. They have looked better over the body of work this season. They have been better in these spots. The game against Kentucky is the game that I would point to and say, okay, Will Levis played well. Bryce Young is, I think, better than Will Levis. I think the Kentucky skill players are a little behind where the Alabama skill players are. So if there is a side to point for Bama to win this game outright, It is to follow that script of what Kentucky did a few weeks ago. I think this is going to be a great game. I think 6.5 is just too many points to lay for Georgia because it's moved from 3. So I think Alabama getting 6.5 is a good bet. But if you're going to bet this, you just take the Alabama money line. Again, that plus 220 price is the best price you're going to get. And I'm going both. I took the points with Bama, and I'm going to put it on the money line too. And I hope for a fun game because I think Bama might be a little better prepared for this game because of their coaching staff. That would be my
there's no question about the coaching. The thing that's going to be interesting to me, I talked a lot about that Bama offensive line. It's going to be interesting to see what that Bama defense does too. They've been really strong against the run. Obviously, Georgia wants to come out and run the ball. Yeah. The only reason I was texting some of my friends during the week about this game, and it just doesn't make sense. I'm betting on Kirby Smart and Stetson Bennett as opposed to Bryce Young, potential Heisman winner, and Nick Saban. It just doesn't make any sense.
And an all-star coaching staff,
right?
The best coaching staff ever assembled in college football history. It's crazy.
But this could be the change of the guard today.
100%. It absolutely
could be it.
I did see some sharp money on the under, by the way. Some sharps did tell me the under because we've seen that total drop. You mentioned 49.5. I even see a 48.5 out there in the market now at DraftKings. So the under, and try to plan that out game script wise. If this game does stay under, then the points will matter more, and I would be more inclined to take the 6.5 and to lean towards Bama. Because if Georgia doesn't score a lot of points in this game, I think it's good. I think Bama's going to score. I do. I think Bama's going to score. And I think the only way Georgia wins the game is if they do what you said the first script was. Kirby Smart says, screw you, conservative game plan. I'm taking shots down the field because I saw Bama give up a ton of points in multiple occasions this year. If Kirby Smart tries to play it close to the vest, that will be his demise, I think, today.
First play of the game, I want to see play action. I want to see Stetson
Bennett. We'll find out very early.
Let it rip. I don't care if it's overthrown by 20 yards.
Sure.
Complete it. Just
put it in their head.
No interceptions. Just send the shot. Send the shot. Take the shot. That's what I want to see on that first drive for sure.
We'll see what Kirby, we always talk about player mindsets. I think Kirby Smart's mindset and how he approaches this game is going to speak volumes onto how it plays out. Because I agree with you. I think if Kirby packs it in, runs the ball down Bama's throats 30, 40 times, I think Bama's going to win the game. Period. End of story. If they open it up and say, screw you, conservative, we're going to go after this today. We are playing to win, not playing not to lose. That's where I would be concerned if you're a Bama backer.
The way just final thoughts here, the way I see this kind of playing out, Georgia blowout, I'm 31-17, or Bama wins. I don't see a Georgia close win.
Sure.
That's just how I see it.
It's going to be a fascinating day. This is the first Saturday, conference title Saturday, I can recall in the last few years where 1 and 3 and 4 have really been in doubt. I could potentially see 2 spots opening up in the top 4 today, which I don't know. Usually it's 1. Usually there's 1 spot up for grabs.
I see 3. I think 3 spots.
There really could be chaos today because the spreads are relatively short. The SEC championship game, which is always the decider for who gets in, is very much up in the air. There's a lot up for grabs today. It is going to be a really exciting day of college football.
You got a comment in the chat. Bulldogs -7 and under 49. I like both of those.
I like the under. I think the under is where I would bet this game. Really, I might add the under later. I really might.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to our play of the day. But before we get to our personal plays, Jared, is there a 3-star play on the website? I think I saw a couple on there earlier.
There's a few actually. So Stephen Hall's got Oklahoma State laying 5 and a hook today against Baylor. We got Connor. He's got Lafayette, Louisiana. They don't like it when they call him Lafayette anymore. It's just Louisiana. Getting 3. And then how about some college hoops? BYU laying 2 and a hook. Wise guy, Matt Weisenfeld's on that. And then the under. Goodness gracious, playing unders in college basketball. Y'all are just, sweaty. Marquette, Wisconsin. That's a good game too. That's like a rivalry game. Marquette, Wisconsin. Under 137 and a hook. Some college hoops. 12:30 Eastern time. So a very quick turnaround with that one.
Absolutely. All right. Why don't you kick it off? Your play of the day. What you got?
I'm taking a page out of our girl Lauren Jabbar's book today. So I was going to play just Bama straight up. She gave out Bama plus 6.5 yesterday. She's been, by the way, she is destroying us in the play of the day standings because she keeps hitting these money lines, dude. It's crazy.
The Trayvon Diggs interception. I mean,
we gave her props yesterday on the show for it. She is a gem. She's an absolute gem. She's kicking all of our asses by picking
she's up
these
over 20. She's up over 20 units now, right? Like
she's up 20 units in, and like it's not like it's like a short sample size. We've been doing the show for 3 months now. And, you know, all of us are up, too, which is good. And if you're up in 3 months of betting every day.
20 units?
She is destroying us. So I'm going to take a page out of our co-host playbook today, and I'm going to put the Bama money line plus 220 as the POD. Go big or go home, or as Lauren likes to say, no risk it, no biscuit, or biscuit for the risk it. I don't know, whatever crazy saying she's going to use. Should be an awesome game. If you want to take the points with Bama, that's obviously a good play too. But I'm taking the money line. It's going to be fun. The group chat's going to be popping, I'm sure, at around 4:00 today.
Absolutely. And tonight, when Michigan's playing too, especially if you know we get a little Harbaugh game going here in Iowa, takes a lead, the chat is definitely going to be popping. At least for us. I mean, maybe not on her end, but for us.
Lauren, well, she tried to jinx it a million times this week. She's like, Michigan's going to the playoff. And then she's like, but I'm going to bet Iowa plus 11. I'm like, Lauren, she always wants to get on the other side of it.
Of course she does. Of course she does.
Hedge your happiness a little bit.
That's the way to play it. Hedge your happiness.
There you go. She's not going to be upset either way.
My play. I am on the other side of that Georgia-Bama game that we've talked about. The only play that I'm putting out today, Georgia laying the 6.5 points. I love this under a touchdown. I'm a little nervous. Because it hasn't moved, and I've seen this movie way too many times. Because I think that in about an hour or so, if I see a -6, I'm gonna just I'm gonna be really sad because it'll just be 2 weeks in a row that that's happened to me. But right now, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm with the people, with the public.
Okay.
Georgia -6.5, just the better team. This is the year where Kirby Smart and Georgia. This is the changing of the guard. Hammer, meet, nail. Nick Saban for the first time since 2015. You're the underdog. You're the nail today. Georgia hammers Bama. That's
You're the people's champ. That's.
I am the people's champ. Yeah, we'll see. It's
gonna be a fun game. These are the types of games. Like, don't like go crazy on these games because these games are so volatile. You saw it last night with Oregon. Like, just put some money on these games today and have fun with it because we truly are gifted some really great matchups today. We really are.
Well, I mean, I say this is my only play, and usually, like if you follow the plays, like I'm putting out, probably 10 units on a Saturday. Only 4 units today, but it's all on Georgia. Only
okay,
4, but it's all.
That's okay. 4 units isn't that much. That's only 4% of your bankroll. If that's your only play today, that's perfectly fine. But I've been asked this question before. Like, at what point do you put so many units on a game that the game becomes like not fun anymore?
4 units for me is a max play.
That's max. Yeah, like I'm kind of like 2 to 3. If now my units might be a little bigger money wise than yours. I don't know. I don't care. Like, we don't unit shame here. But for me, like 2 to 3 units for me. If I put more than that on a game, like, it's super stressful. Like, I am really stressed. I don't even enjoy the game anymore after like a 3-unit play. It's like, what am I doing?
Yeah, well, it should be a fun Saturday of college football. We got college basketball. Should be a great day.
Soccer too, by the way. I'm watching. We need some more goals.
You're watching
Newcastle Burnley
Premier League going on here. Let me see. Oh, all right. I'm looking at the chat. Doesn't look like there's anything.
Oh no, Gary Sloan wants to know if we have a personal side bet on the game today since we're on opposite sides.
I mean, we don't, but let's
talk. Yeah, we don't. Usually we do the swag bets during the show. We can do a swag bet. I don't have any Alabama or Georgia gear, though. You probably have some Georgia gear from being down there in Atlanta all those years.
I have zero Georgia gear. Zero Georgia gear.
We'll have to buy some Georgia gear. We'll have to buy some Georgia or Bama. Maybe I'll get a big elephant to put on my head if Alabama.
I was going to say, let's do this. If Bama wins, I got to get the elephant hat, whatever. I got to wear that for a show. If Georgia wins, I mean, you got to wear a bulldog mask or something. You got to. I'll do that. You got to go.
I'll do the bulldog mask. We got to get Lauren involved in this too because she's on Bama with me. So we'll
bulldog masks. Lauren doesn't get a say. 2 bulldog masks and one Bama. She doesn't get a say. So that'll be that's the bet.
The
You
swag
guys got
bets
no,
are
but
fun.
But you guys got to do that show together. I don't even want to be there.
Both have bulldog.
You guys
masks
both
in
have
the
to do it together with the bulldog mask. I think that's the.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
I think that's the bet. I think that's the bet.
I think that's hilarious. I love it. I'm in. Let's
all
go.
right. Well, enjoy your Saturday. You guys enjoy your Saturday as well. Good luck to everyone placing bets out there, unless you're placing bets on Bama. So that'll do it for us today. For Jared Smith, I'm Alex Glaze. See you tomorrow.